Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, we've just got sneak peek at the new boss. All of his skills, all of his kit. We're going to go and check it out in a second. So, what's his name here? Akumori, the Phantom Shogun, is coming to town. And yeah, we're going to listen in on the kind of like the big hype dude in terms of what he thinks we should be doing to take this Shogun down. And I guess what I'll do is I'll follow up with a video maybe over the weekend where I talked about some champions which I think might just be able to come in and do some good work here.
Hello everyone, welcome to our newest update preview video dedicated to Accessory Ascension. We teased this feature in our most recent What's Next in Raid video, but now it's time for the big reveal. First things first, Accessory Ascension works exactly the same.
Let's just see. So you can get an extra 29 accuracy or resistance on an accuracy or resistance banner. Yeah, so that is a lot of extra stats.
As Artifact Ascension. So we won't rehash all the core mechanics in full. You can find a link to our Artifact Ascension guide in the description below, or read the in-game guide if you need a full recap.
Just wondering, does that already exist? Because can you get crit damage on top of... How I'm doing? Can you get crit damage on top of a crit amulet? Do we already know this? Is it already in here? Ascension bonus. No, it's not. I'm guessing that you can. I'm guessing you're going to be able to get whatever the main stat is again on all of these things. So landing crit damage on top of a crit amulet. I mean, it's just massive stat bloat. Obviously, we need this stuff for certain areas of the game, or do we? I'm not sure that we do, but certainly it's going to be quite big stat bloat. If you think about an accuracy chest at the moment, can roll up to 29 more accuracy, and you get like 96 on the chest. So it's almost like a third more again. But if you're getting an extra third again on crit damage, I'm not sure the exact numbers here, but talking about just generally a lot of stat bloat for people that are able to do this. Anyway, let's carry on.
One important thing to mention is that instead of oil, you'll be using a new resource called Extract to
I think it means extract.
Ascend your accessories. Just like potions and oil, Extract comes in 3 types: lesser, greater, and superior. The higher you want to ascend your accessories, the higher grade extract you'll need. Ascending an accessory will unlock a new bonus stat that improves with every new ascension level. You won't be able to ascend accessories that are below rank 4 and level 12. That's about it. But this magical extract doesn't grow on trees. At least, not any normal tree.
This is actually very cool, right? This backdrop with like the goo oozing out, the dude's coming out of the tree.
Nope.
Fair
You'll
play.
have to head to
Good
a
job,
new
Ray.
dungeon and win it via glorious battle. The Phantom Shogun's Grove is the place where it all happens. There, a mighty new boss awaits. Akumori, the Phantom Shogun. This ghostly daimyo is not playing around and has a couple tricks up his sleeves, including a new debuff and a special counter. But don't worry, we've got your back. Let's see how you can exercise the Phantom Shogun. Akumori's got quite the arsenal of impressive and complex skills that all tie into his unique mechanics. In order to understand them, we're going to start with his third skill, Forest of Spears, to cover the important basics. Before unleashing any damage, Akumori first places a block passive skills debuff on your entire party for 3 turns.
This is like the anti-Geomancer right there. This skill is basically like Duchess and Geo, you're not the only champions that can play.
What's worse, this debuff cannot be resisted and it's protected. Sorry, UDK, this isn't your fight. After that, Akumori...
I wonder if it goes through block debuffs as well. Cannot be resisted, and it's protected when it's on. Does it go through block debuffs?
Smacks your champion with the highest crit damage, and then places an irresistible and unblockable enfeeble debuff on them. What's that? A new debuff? Why, yes. Akumori brings to bear a brand new debuff called Enfeeble. Champions under this new debuff can only place weak hits. Not only does this drastically decrease your damage and mean you cannot place debuffs in most situations, but it also plays into another major mechanic that we'll discuss in a moment. Next up.
Does this mean Affinity Breaker suddenly goes from trash to almost like Required? What are we saying? Affinity Breaker with the change suddenly might be OP for this fight. So you turn a weak hit, 50% chance to turn a weak hit into a crit. I think that might be what they're kind of like pushing towards here.
Let's look at Akumari's passive skills. The first one, Shroud of the Shogun,
Blimey, look at the text.
connects directly to the new enfeebled debuff we've just discussed. Akumari starts the battle with a special shade counter, and you're not going to want to let this thing tick up. The shade counter can be increased in the following ways. It increases by 8 stacks whenever one of your champions places a weak hit on Akumari, by 5 stacks for every critical hit Akumari himself deals out, and by 2 stacks for every enfeebled debuff you cleanse from your team. Each
So he gains more crit when you've got the stacks on you. No, he gains more crit when that's stacking up. When he crits, that stacks up more. If you hit with a weak hit, it's stacking more, and he puts those on your whole team. And if you cleanse the weak hit and stuff off, and there's only one of them's like you can't cleanse it; it's locked, it's protected. But the others you can. He's getting stacks again. That can mount up to a lot of stacks so quick.
shade counter stack increases Akumari's critical rate by 1% and critical damage by 2%. So he's only getting stronger the longer he stays in the shade. Last but not least, this Shroud of the Shogun passive also grants Akumari immunity to turn meter reduction effects and enfeeble. If you think you're going to slow this samurai from exacting his revenge, think again. Okay, so that has to be it with the shade counter.
So no turn meter drops, no decreased speed. Is that what they're saying there?
No more horrible surprises? Well, we'd hate to disappoint you, as Akumari's Shroud of the Shogun passive also gives him access to some pretty powerful immunities, if you let him gather his strength. At 10 shade counter stacks, Akumari gets full immunity to poison damage. At 20 stacks, HP burn and smite damage
Smite as well? What?
no longer bother him. When the counter reaches 30 stacks, skills that deal damage based on Akumari's max HP become irrelevant. That's right, attacks like Cold Heart's Heartseeker and any of a crit
Zero
skills
damage.
will deal no damage if the shade counter gets above 30. Finally, oh yeah, there's more. When the shade counter hits 40 and above, Akumari will ignore 100% of the target's defense when attacking. And if he kills a champion, he will immediately attack the rest of your party with an AoE attack. When the Phantom Shogun throws shade, he really means it.
Okay, so when he gets to 40 stacks, it's pretty much wipe time. Like when the Ice Golem comes in with that big smack, that's what he's going to be doing. Plus your main ways of doing damage. Pretty much all of your ways of doing damage went out the window when he hits 40 stacks or 30 stacks even.
As you can see, you'll definitely want to keep the shade counter low at all costs. So let's dive into how you can do just
I love how they're playing on ×1 speed, by the way. How Raid was meant to be played, ×1.
that. Thanks to Akumari's Purge, the Shadow passive skill, awakened champions can decrease the shade counter whenever they attack.
Whenever an awakened champion uses a skill, decreases his stacks according to the awakening level. Oh no. I mean, come on. You know what? You know what Raid could do here, which would be just the best PR move. Right? This is what you should do, Raid. You should make the wish list massively higher than just 2 times chance to get that champion. Like, we're talking times 50 chance to get the champion you want on your wish list for an awakening. That's where I think it should be. 2, Iron Twins should be dropping way more loot. Way more loot. Almost like scrap the essence stuff and just give a soul stone every time you kill the Iron Twins with a chance for it to be a bigger one. Like, if you're putting souls into the game to this sort of level, I mean, you know, I have bought soul stone packs, not that many, but I bought some. I've probably played Iron Twins way more than the majority of players. And I do not have that many 4, 5, and 6-star like champions. I guess what it does mean, you're just going to be bringing in champions that have got high levels, irrelevant of how good they are. It's just going to be like, bring in the high-level awakened dudes.
Exact number of stacks removed by an awakened champion depends on their awakening level.
No one's got this.
Champions with 1 awakening level will remove 1 stack per attack, while champions who are fully awakened will remove 6 shade counter stacks per skill.
I mean, it's not a bad mechanic, by the way. It's quite an interesting way of using the blessings in a different way. It's just such a sucky way to get blessings right now.
Given how powerful Akumori can become when his shade counter increases, I don't need to tell you how important it is to bring awakened champions to this fight, especially on the later stages. Whew! We've talked so much about Akumori's passives. Let's get back to his active skills. Unlike Forest of Spears, all of Akumori's other active skills will prioritize champions under an enfeebled debuff as their main target. Top tip, use the taunt buff to keep Akumori's attention away from your squishier champions under enfeeble.
Use the taunt buff. Okay, Raid. Let's see. Use that taunt buff. Taunts. I mean, you either, if you're doing this type of patch drop, you've either got to just throw this taunt buff out to existing champions that are already out there, right? It's like, we've upgraded 20 champions, 4 rares, 10 epics, and a bunch of legendaries, and we've added taunt into their kit. Like, if it's going to be this crucial, then you can't just be sitting there saying, like, got 2 chances. Like, it's not enough. I know they will release more champions, and that's all cool, but I feel like you've got to backfill a bit with some of the crap champions. Give Romero, give Toph, Taunt or something. Like, you know what I mean? Just, you've got to backfill a little bit here. Help people out a bit.
Scourge Sword. Akumori's second skill is another brutal attack. Firstly, the Phantom Shogun targets 1 enemy. After he's smacked that champion, he'll then remove all buffs from your team, except from the initial target of the attack. As if that wasn't enough, Akumori will then spread the enfeebled debuff from the initial target to everyone else on your team. Remember, when Akumori uses his Forest of Spears skill, he places a protected enfeebled debuff, and he's looking to spread that debuff across your team with Scourge Sword. And because he's such a generous soul, Akumori will make sure that any champion who received an enfeebled debuff,
so that is going through block debuffs there.
Buff also gets a 60%
Going through block
decreased
debuffs.
defense debuff for 2 turns. I know what you're thinking. What if there's no enfeebled debuff to spread? Well, Akumori will end his Scourge Sword attack by placing an unblockable and protected enfeebled debuff for 3 turns on the champion with the highest crit damage. He really wants you landing nothing but weak hits.
So it feels like you're going to have to direct who that goes on, and it's probably not your damage dealer. So you'd have to pump somebody's crit damage up, but not someone who you're going to be using as like your enemy max HP champ or something like that.
Effectively, Akumori is looking to take your main damage dealer out of the picture with this attack. If you get hit with this, you can, and absolutely should, cleanse Enfeeble ASAP, bringing support champions who can cleanse Enfeeble ASAP.
Hold on. So you cleanse it, though, and look at the stat grow.
Akumori is looking to take your main damage dealer out of the picture with this attack. If you get hit with this, you can, and absolutely should, cleanse Enfeeble ASAP.
Oh, no, it doesn't. I thought that was the stat grow.
Support
Okay.
champions who can cleanse debuffs is essential to vanquishing this ghostly warlord. Once he's placed and spread enfeebled debuffs, Akumori can maximize the effectiveness of his first skill, Spectral Lunge. First, he attacks 1 random champion. Once he hits that first champion, Akumori will then attack anyone else under an enfeebled debuff and fill his own turn meter by 20% for each enemy hit. If your whole team is under enfeeble, Akumori is getting 100% turn meter back when he hits you with this skill. So, keeping those enfeebled debuffs off your team is super important. Fewer champions get hit, and Akumori gets less turn meter. Win-win. Finally, we have Wraith Javelin. Akumori attacks a single champion and makes full use of his shade counter. He'll ignore the following protective buffs based on the number of shade counter stacks. 10 stacks will get him ignore block damage. 20 will nullify unkillable. 30 will make ally protection useless, and 40 or more stacks will let Akumori ignore your champion's shield buffs. Remember how Akumori's Shade Counter also lets him ignore 100% of defense and boosts his crit rate and crit damage massively when up over 40 stacks? Combine it with this skill, and you're looking at one of the most powerful attacks ever. You do not want to come up against this attack with a 40+ Shade Counter. So, you're staring down the mighty Phantom Shogun. How do you even begin to fight him? Well,
good question,
there's a
man.
couple tips to make your life
bring in a load of
easier.
6-star blessed.
Tip numero uno, bring awakened champions. The higher their awakening level, the better, as they'll be more effective at keeping Akumori's Shade Counter in check. Keep the Shade Counter low, and you'll keep your survivability high. Tip number 2, bring a cleanser. As you can see, leaving Enfeeble on your team is a bad idea. Cleansing Enfeeble may increase the Shade Counter by 2 stacks, but it's better than Akumori gaining 8 stacks when you're landing nothing but weak hits on him. Tip the 3rd, bring plenty of support. Akumori hits hard.
It's saying bring plenty of support, and I get it. I kind of agree. If you can't beat somebody, you need to kind of like build up your support. But it feels like this dude is just eradicating a lot of what the support do. The passives are gone. Like, is it a case of kill him before he kills you that we need to do here? Comment below. Like, what's your initial thoughts around team makeups? What sort of thing do you think you'll be doing to take this guy down?
So you'll want buffs and debuffs that are going to blunt his attacks and strengthen your defenses. Decreased critical rate is going to be a great friend here, not just in terms of limiting damage, but also limiting Akumori from gaining Shade Counter stacks with critical hits. Tip 4, do not rely on powerful passive skills. Akumori can block passive skills almost indefinitely thanks to his Forest of Spears skill. Fast teams might counter this, but it's better to not rely on champions with powerful passives in the first place. And finally, consider equipping your champions with Affinity Breaker artifacts. You're likely going to be landing weak hits thanks to Enfeeble, but having Affinity Breaker gives you a decent chance of changing them into critical hits instead. And that's it. We hope you guys are as excited as we are to face off against Akumori, the Phantom Shogun.
Damn. That sounds really, really hard. Often when you just kind of like, when you're not playing the fight, you're just kind of like listening to all of the skills. Most bosses sound insane. This one definitely does. And yeah, I don't know, mate. I've got no Infinity Breaker gear at all. So that's not really going to be doing it for me unless I can build some. But I don't know. It just feels like it's going to be a rough one. Feels like it's going to be a very, very tough fight unless you've got highly ascended champions. So it looks like anyone who I've got ascended high suddenly might be getting some place in a team. Even Gomlock might be finding his place into a team at last. There you go. Up in Hell Hades. That's the Shogun. What do you think? I'll see you soon.